Imagine sharing a border with your polar opposite. That's the reality for North and South Korea. These neighboring nations stand as a vivid illustration of how different two societies can become, despite sharing the same root. Politically, North Korea's totalitarian regime contrasts sharply with South Korea's democratic system. Economically, North Korea is largely isolated, while South Korea is a global powerhouse, home to household names like Samsung and Hyundai. And when it comes to lifestyle, the people of North Korea live under strict government control and censorship, while South Koreans enjoy a vibrant culture of music, technology, and fashion. Remarkably, these two drastically different worlds coexist side by side, divided by a mere 38th parallel line. It's a stark contrast that raises an intriguing question: how did such dramatically different societies sprout from the same soil? So how did this polarizing divide come into existence? Let's delve into history. Rewind to the late 19th century when Korea was a united kingdom. This was a time when the Korean peninsula was under the rule of the Joseon dynasty, a period that lasted for over 500 years, from 1392 to 1897. This dynasty was not just a political entity, it was a cultural and social force that shaped the Korean identity. The Joseon dynasty's influence touched every aspect of life, from the arts and sciences to the legal and social structures, creating a cultural identity that remains a part of Korean life today. However, the final years of the 19th century brought about a wave of change that would forever alter the path of the Korean peninsula. The year 1910 marked a significant turning point in Korean history with the invasion of Japan. This invasion led to the annexation of Korea, ending the unified Korean Empire and starting a period of Japanese rule. This era was marked by the suppression of Korean culture and identity, as Japan sought to assimilate Korea into its empire. Korean language, customs, and traditions were suppressed, and resistance was met with harsh penalties. This period of Japanese rule lasted until the end of World War II in 1945. The conclusion of the war brought with it the liberation of Korea from Japanese rule. However, this liberation was not without its complications. The end of the war also brought about the division of the Korean peninsula into two separate zones of influence, with the Soviet Union controlling the north and the United States controlling the South. The end of World War II in 1945 marked the beginning of a new era for the Korean peninsula. Post-World War II, two superpowers stepped in, and a line was drawn at the 38th parallel. This seemingly innocuous line, invisible to the naked eye, would forever change the destiny of the Korean peninsula. In the aftermath of the war, the global landscape was changing rapidly. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the new superpowers, and their ideologies and strategic interests set the stage for the Cold War. Korea, ravaged by years of Japanese occupation, was caught in the crossfire. To prevent a power vacuum, the two superpowers agreed to a temporary division of Korea. The Soviet Union would administer the North, while the United States took over the South. The 38th parallel, a line of latitude, became an arbitrary divider, splitting families, communities, and a shared history. In the North, the Soviets established the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, under the leadership of Kim Il-sung, a former guerrilla fighter. The state adopted a socialist model, with a centrally planned economy and strict control over all aspects of life. Simultaneously in the South, the United States helped set up the Republic of Korea under Syngman Rhee, a staunch anti-communist. The South went down a different path, embracing democracy and free market capitalism. These were two radically different systems, and tensions began to rise. Both governments claimed to be the legitimate ruler of the entire peninsula, and neither recognized the 38th parallel as a permanent border. Disputes and skirmishes became frequent, and the stage was set for a full-blown conflict. Yet at the heart of all this, it was the Korean people who bore the brunt of the division. Families were torn apart, communities were divided, and a shared cultural heritage was fractured. This division was meant to be temporary, but it laid the foundation for a divide that exists to this day. The 38th parallel, once an arbitrary line on a map, has become one of the most heavily militarized borders in the world, a stark reminder of a division that continues to reverberate through the pages of history. In 1950, tensions escalated into a full-blown war. The Korean War, also known as the Forgotten War, was a critical event that had profound implications on the Korean peninsula and the world at large. But what sparked this conflict? The answer lies in the ideological differences between North and South Korea, a fissure further deepened by the Cold War dynamics. North Korea, backed by Soviet Union and China, held on to a communist ideology while South Korea, supported by the United States, embraced a democratic system. These contrasting philosophies led to a power struggle that eventually burst into a devastating war. On June 25, 1950, North Korea, with Soviet and Chinese support, launched a surprise attack on South Korea. The United Nations, in an unprecedented move, intervened to support South Korea, marking the first collective action under its banner. The war saw the involvement of 21 nations, with the United States providing the bulk of the military force. The war was brutal and bloody, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. The conflict saw dramatic swings, with the battle lines moving up and down the peninsula. Major offensives like the Incheon Landing and the Battle of Chosin Reservoir became emblematic of the war's ferocity. After 3 years of intense fighting and immense human suffering, an armistice was signed in July 1953. However, it was not a peace treaty but a ceasefire. This meant the war officially didn't end, it was merely suspended. The agreement established the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, along the 38th parallel, which became the de facto border between North and South Korea. The Korean War had far-reaching consequences. It solidified the division of the Korean Peninsula and set the stage for the ongoing tension we witness today. The war left an indelible mark on the global political landscape, influencing international relations and shaping the dynamics of the Cold War. The Korean War ended in a stalemate, and the 38th parallel became a heavily fortified border. This border, a symbol of the unresolved conflict, continues to divide the two Koreas both physically and ideologically. Scene script. Post-war North and South Korea took dramatically different paths. The end of the Korean War in 1953 marked a new era for the two Koreas. Politically, the North adopted a strict totalitarian regime, with the Kim family ruling with an iron fist. This leadership style fostered a culture of fear and obedience, with the state controlling all aspects of life, including the media, education, and even individual thought. In stark contrast, the South embraced democracy, with power changing hands peacefully through regular elections. This political freedom allowed for the growth of a vibrant civil society, with citizens enjoying rights such as freedom of speech, assembly, and the press. Economically, the paths taken by the two Koreas were also dramatically different. North Korea adopted a centrally planned economy, with the state controlling all production and distribution of goods. This approach, coupled with international sanctions and a lack of technological advancements, resulted in economic stagnation and widespread poverty. On the other hand, South Korea championed a market economy and focused on export-oriented industrialization. This approach, coupled with significant investments in education and technology, led to what is now known as the Miracle on the Han River. South Korea's rapid economic growth from one of the poorest countries in the world to a global economic powerhouse. Socially, the differences between the two Koreas are equally stark. North Korea's isolationist policies have resulted in a society that is largely cut off from the rest of the world, with limited access to outside information and a high degree of state control over daily life. Meanwhile, South Korea has embraced globalization, becoming a hub of pop culture and technology. Its citizens enjoy a high standard of living with access to the latest technology, a vibrant arts scene, and a strong education system. The Korean Peninsula, once united, now stands as a glaring example of divergent destinies. From a united kingdom to a divided peninsula, the journey of North and South Korea is a study in contrast. From the outset, we've navigated through the stark differences between these two nations, contrasting their economies, societies, and political systems. We've delved into their shared history, a tale of a single kingdom split in two following the end of World War II. This division, a product of political decisions made half a world away, set the stage for one of the most brutal conflicts of the 20th century, the Korean War. In its aftermath, North and South Korea embarked on divergent paths. The North, an isolated one-party state with a centrally planned economy, and the South, a global powerhouse with a vibrant democracy and bustling economy. Yet, despite their differences, they remain intrinsically tied by a shared history and culture. As we explore the histories of nations, we learn not just about their past, but also about their present and the possibilities for their future.